The Mafia Boss came for the money her father owed, ruthless, composed, every step echoing authority. The room went silent the moment his eyes met hers. Her father trembled, stammering excuses, but the Mafia Boss didn't even look at him. Instead, his gaze lingered on her, calm, assessing, dangerous. Then, with a voice as cold as steel, he said, "Forget the debt. I'll take her instead." Olivia was having the kind of night where nothing went right, which should have prepared her for everything going catastrophically wrong. First, the hospital shift from hell, 3 code blues and a patient who'd tried to propose to her while heavily medicated. Then, coming home to find her father sitting in the dark like he was rehearsing for a depression commercial. And now, at midnight, someone was knocking on their door with the kind of authority that suggested warrants, or worse. "I'll get it," she called out, but James was already scrambling up, his face drained of color. "Don't open that door," he said, voice cracking with something between a command and a plea. "Dad, I've had a 12-hour shift dealing with bodily fluids. I'm not afraid of whoever's on the other side of that door." She should have been. The man standing in their doorway looked like God had been showing off when he designed him, then gotten worried and added a personality disorder for balance. Expensive suit, dark hair, Italian features that belonged on currency or in a museum, and an expression that suggested he'd never smiled unless contractually obligated. 2 additional men flanked him, the kind who definitely had concealed carry permits and opinions about kneecaps. James Ward. Not a question, a statement, delivered in an accent that made even her father's name sound like an indictment. "That's him," Olivia said, jerking a thumb toward her father. "If you're here about the extended warranty on his car, we're not interested." The man's gaze moved to her, and she felt the temperature drop. It was the kind of look that took inventory, not in a creepy way, but in the way someone might assess furniture before buying a house. Calculating, precise, unnerving. "Leo Enzo," he said, like his name was an explanation in itself. "Your father has a debt. $300,000. I've come to settle accounts. Hello, my beautiful friends. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin." The number hung in the air like smoke from a fire that was definitely someone's fault. 300, Olivia spun to face James. Dad, what did you do?" Her father was already stammering, words tumbling over each other like they were racing toward excuses, bad investments, market crashes, one bet that went wrong, then another trying to fix the first, interest that compounded faster than regret. Leo listened with the patience of someone who'd heard every excuse humans could manufacture and remained singularly unimpressed by all of them. "Mr. Enzo, please," James finished, hands clasped like prayer would help. "I'll find a way to pay. I just need time." "You've had time," Leo said quietly. "What you need is $300,000. Since you don't have that, I'll accept alternative compensation." "Alternative compensation," Olivia repeated slowly. "Is that mob speak for break his thumbs or—" "I don't break thumbs," Leo said, and somehow his calm delivery made it worse. "I take collateral, assets with equivalent value." "Okay, great. So you'll be disappointed because we have approximately nothing of value unless you want a dying succulent plant and my collection of vintage anxiety." His eyes, dark, direct, devastating, settled on her again. "Not nothing." The world stopped spinning. "No!" James said immediately, desperately. "Not her. You can't. She's not—" 18 months, Leo said, addressing Olivia directly. "You work for me. I freeze the debt. Your father lives without collection efforts. When the term ends, we revisit the arrangement." "Let me get this straight," Olivia said, her voice remarkably steady considering her entire life was currently being negotiated like a used car. "You want me to be your— what? Personal assistant? Maid? Professional existential crisis?" "Assistant, estate manager, whatever's required." He tilted his head slightly. "You're a nurse?" "Yes, and before you ask, no, I don't make house calls for the morally questionable." That's exactly what I need. The certainty in his voice made her stomach flip. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a transaction he'd already decided on, and she was just the signature line. She looked at her father, 57, gray-haired, broken by choices that had snowballed into disaster, the man who'd read her bedtime stories and taught her to be brave. "If I say yes," she said slowly, "I want proof, documentation, legal guarantee that my father is safe." "Agreed. And I reserve the right to be an absolute nightmare to work for." Leo's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes suggested he'd already calculated that variable. "I expected nothing less. Then I guess I'm spending the next year and a half learning what horrible life decisions feel like from the inside," Olivia said, and somehow her sarcasm felt like the only weapon she had left. Leo brought out a phone from his pockets and made a brief call in Italian. "You have 1 hour to say goodbye." James's voice cracked. 1 hour? That's not enough. Use it wisely. Leo left with his men. The hour vanished. Olivia packed. Clothes, toiletries, her mother's necklace. Each item felt like a decision she couldn't take back. At the door, James gripped her hand. "If anything happens, anything, you call me." "I'll be fine," she lied. She looked back once, saw her father broken in the doorway, and forced herself forward. The car door closed with the kind of finality that suggested escape wasn't part of the package deal. Olivia sat in leather seats that probably cost more than her entire nursing school tuition, trying very hard not to think about the fact that she'd just agreed to be human collateral. The interior smelled like expensive cologne and poor life choices, mostly hers. Leo settled across from her, perfectly composed, like commandeering people's daughters was just another Tuesday for him. "So," Olivia said, because silence felt like admitting defeat, "do you do this often? The whole take a person instead of money thing? Or am I a special case?" "You're the first." "Great. I love being a pioneer in human trafficking adjacent situations." His jaw tightened, the first crack in that marble facade. "You're not being trafficked. You're being employed. Employed people usually get to say no. You did say no, then you said yes. Under duress doesn't count as consent. I'm pretty sure that's on a poster somewhere." Leo leaned back, studying her with those unreadable dark eyes. "You talk a lot when you're nervous." "You have no idea. Once during a Code Blue, I accidentally recited the entire opening monologue from The Lion King. The patient lived, but my credibility took a hit." The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost. "I'll keep that in mind." The car rolled through Chicago's streets, leaving her neighborhood, cramped apartments and flickering streetlights, and heading towards something that looked increasingly like a different tax bracket. Trees appeared, actual trees, then gates, then a driveway that seemed to have delusions of grandeur. When the estate came into view, Olivia's brain short-circuited. "You live in a castle? It's a mansion. It has turrets. I see turrets. That's castle adjacent at minimum." The building sprawled across manicured grounds like it was showing off. Stone facade, massive windows glowing with warm light, and what appeared to be an actual fountain in the circular driveway. The kind of fountain that had opinions about net worth. "This is obscene," Olivia muttered as the car stopped. "This is villain's lair levels of obscene. I prefer to think of it as comfortable. Comfortable is a nice couch and good Wi-Fi. This is a tax evasion scheme with architectural flair." Leo exited the car with fluid grace, and Olivia followed, still wearing her scrubs, because apparently being collateral didn't come with a wardrobe change notice. The entrance hall was worse. Marble floors, actual marble, the kind museums used, stretched toward a double staircase that belonged in a music video about excessive wealth. Crystal chandeliers, art that looked like it required insurance policies, an espresso machine visible through an archway that could probably achieve sentience and start its own coffee empire. "I think your house is judging me," Olivia said. "The house doesn't judge. I do that." Leo gestured toward a side room. "We'll finalize the contract in my office." "Of course you have an office. probably with leather-bound books and a globe that opens into a bar. The globe is in the library. She couldn't tell if he was joking. The office was exactly as pretentious as expected: dark wood, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a desk that looked like it had witnessed multiple treaty signings. Leo produced a folder, laying out papers with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before, except he said she was the first. "The terms," Leo said, sliding a document across the desk. 18 months of service. You'll manage household schedules, coordinate my calendar, assist with estate management, and provide medical support when necessary. Olivia scanned the paper. This says I'm on call 24/7. Emergencies don't operate on business hours. Neither does labor law. I'm pretty sure this violates several of them. You're not an employee. You're collateral. He said it so matter-of-factly that she almost laughed. During your term, your father's debt is frozen. No interest, no collection efforts. He's safe. And after 18 months? We revisit the arrangement. Revisit, Olivia repeated. Love the vagueness. Really sells the definitely not indefinite servitude angle. Leo's expression remained unchanged. You'll have your own suite, access to the grounds, meals provided, medical insurance. Oh good, health insurance, the cornerstone of every kidnapping. You're not kidnapped, you agreed. Under duress? You already made that point. He pushed a pen toward her. Sign, or I return you to your apartment and proceed with alternative collection methods involving your father. The threat was delivered in the same tone someone might use to discuss weather patterns, which somehow made it worse. Olivia picked up the pen, hating herself a little. For the record, this is coercion. Noted. She signed. The pen felt heavier than it should. A woman appeared in the doorway, mid-50s, efficient-looking, with salt and pepper hair pulled into a bun and eyes that suggested she'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed either time. Mrs. Chen, Leo said, please show Miss Ward to the East Wing. This way, Mrs. Chen said, her accent faintly British. Try to keep up. Olivia followed her through hallways that seemed designed to disorient intruders. So, Mrs. Chen, do you also work here under duress, or is it just me? I work here because Mr. Enzo pays exceptionally well and doesn't ask stupid questions. She stopped at a door, pushing it open. Your suite. Suite was underselling it. The room was bigger than her entire apartment. King bed with actual pillows, plural. Attached bathroom with a tub that could fit a small family, and windows overlooking gardens that probably had their own staff. If you need anything, don't, Mrs. Chen said. Breakfast is at 7. Be presentable. Define presentable. Not that. She gestured at Olivia's scrubs. Your wardrobe is in the closet. Don't wander after midnight. Don't enter Mr. Enzo's private quarters. Don't ask questions about business. So many don'ts. Any do's? Stay alive. Stay useful. Mrs. Chen's expression softened. Barely. And don't try to run. The last person who tried ended up regretting it before the end of the driveway. She left. Olivia stood in the center of luxury she'd never asked for, feeling the weight of 18 months pressing down like atmospheric pressure. She walked to the window, looking out at grounds that stretched into darkness. Her phone buzzed, a text from her father. I'm so sorry. She didn't respond. Instead, she explored the suite, finding clothes in her exact size. Someone had done research which was creepy, and stumbling across a small photograph on the dresser. Not hers. Left behind, maybe. It showed a younger Leo with an older man, both smiling. Rare expression on Leo's face. The photo was worn at the edges like someone had held it often. Human details, dangerous ones. She was examining it when voices drifted from the hallway, low, tense. File is incomplete. Marcelli's involvement changes. Keep it quiet. If she finds out... Footsteps. Olivia froze, then quickly set down the photograph. The voices faded. Marcelli. A name. A clue. A seed of something wrong planted in her chest. She sat on the bed, impossibly soft, obscenely comfortable, and stared at her prison of Egyptian cotton sheets and moral ambiguity. 18 months. She could do this. She could survive, make his life difficult, and get her father out of debt. Then she'd never owe anyone anything ever again. Outside, the mansion settled into silence, and Olivia Ward began mentally cataloging every exit, every weakness, every way out. Because, collateral or not, she wasn't staying a line item on anyone's spreadsheet, not without a fight. Olivia's first official day as human collateral began at 6:47 a.m. when Mrs. Chen knocked on her door with the enthusiasm of someone delivering a death sentence. "You're late," Mrs. Chen announced. "For what?" "I don't start until 7. "You start when Mr. Enzo starts. He's been awake since 5. "Of course he has," Olivia muttered, dragging herself out of sheets that felt like sleeping on a cloud made of regret. "Does he also run marathons before breakfast and solve world hunger during his commute? He runs at 6. Now move." 20 minutes later, Olivia stood in Leo's office wearing clothes that fit suspiciously well and holding a tablet that looked more advanced than the equipment at her hospital. Leo sat behind his desk, perfectly pressed suit, hair immaculate, looking like he'd never experienced a rough morning in his life. "You're late," he said without looking up. "Your housekeeper already informed me. I'm being double-shamed. Very efficient." He slid a leather portfolio across the desk. "Your responsibilities. Memorize them." Olivia flipped it open. The list was extensive and vaguely terrifying. Manage daily schedule. Coordinate household staff. Attend social functions. Provide medical support. Maintain discretion regarding all business matters. "This last one," she said, pointing. "Maintain discretion. Does that mean don't tell the police about the crimes, or don't tell people you're being held against your will?" "Both." "Fantastic. Love a multitasking gag order." Leo finally looked up, his dark eyes unreadable. "You'll accompany me to appointments, dinners, and occasional meetings. You'll take notes, manage logistics, and, most importantly, you'll learn when to speak and when to stay silent. So, basically, be a sentient clipboard with medical training. Essentially. And if I refuse? You won't." The certainty in his voice should have been infuriating. It was infuriating. But there was something else underneath. Not quite a challenge, but close. "Fine," Olivia said. "But if I'm doing this, I'm doing it my way. Which means I reserve the right to be honest when people are being idiots." "That should be entertaining," Leo said and returned to his paperwork. The first week was a masterclass in controlled chaos. Day 1. Olivia spilled espresso on Marco, Leo's stone-faced lieutenant, while trying to operate the obscenely complicated coffee machine. Marco's expression suggested he was calculating how many pieces she could be divided into. "I'm so sorry," Olivia said, dabbing at his suit with a towel. "In my defense, that machine has more buttons than a spaceship." "It's a Breville," Marco said coldly. "Well, the Breville hates me." Day 2. She accidentally called a visiting associate Signor instead of Don, earning a lecture from Mrs. Chen about Italian honorifics that felt like being scolded in 3 languages simultaneously. "How was I supposed to know he's a Don?" Olivia protested. "He doesn't have a name tag." "You learn by observing," Mrs. Chen said. "Watch, listen, stop talking." "Talking is my coping mechanism." Day 3. She reorganized Leo's schedule to be more efficient, accidentally double-booking him with both a weapons supplier and his accountant. "They can share the time slot," Olivia suggested when Leo discovered the error. "It's cross-functional synergy. One sells illegal firearms, the other reports to the IRS. Right, bad synergy. I see that now." But by day 4, something shifted. She'd learned the coffee machine's dark secrets. She could differentiate between the various intimidating men in suits. She'd memorized Leo's preferences: espresso at 6 a.m., no sugar, don't speak to him until he's had 2 cups, and had started anticipating his needs before he voiced them. "Miss Ward," Leo said on Friday morning, watching her efficiently coordinate a conference call while simultaneously reviewing his schedule. "You're adapting. Is that approval? Should I write this down? Frame it? Don't push it." But she'd seen it, the faintest hint of something in his expression that wasn't disapproval. Progress. The dinner meeting happened on her 8th day. "You'll accompany me tonight," Leo said that afternoon. "Wear something appropriate." Appropriate like church appropriate, or appropriate like we're dining with people who've definitely committed felonies? The latter. The dress waiting in her closet was midnight blue, elegant, and made her look like she belonged in a world she absolutely didn't. Mrs. Chen appeared to do her makeup. "Hold still or you'll look like a raccoon." And by 7 p.m. Olivia barely recognized herself. Leo's expression when she descended the stairs was infuriatingly neutral. Acceptable. "Wow! Don't strain yourself with the compliments." The restaurant was the kind that didn't have prices on the menu, which Olivia had always assumed was a myth rich people invented to feel special. Private room, dark wood, wine that probably cost more than her monthly rent. 4 men sat around the table, older, watchful, radiating the kind of danger that came with experience. Leo introduced them with names Olivia immediately forgot, too busy cataloging escape routes and potential weapons. "Miss Ward is my new assistant," Leo said smoothly, pulling out her chair. "Assistant," one of them, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, repeated. "How modern." The undercurrent in his tone suggested assistant wasn't the word he was thinking. "I prefer to think of it as professional wrangler," Olivia said brightly. "Mr. Enzo's very difficult. Someone has to manage him." Silence. Then the silver-haired man laughed. "I like her." "Everyone does," Leo said dryly. "It's exhausting." The evening proceeded with careful conversation, business veiled in pleasantries, threats disguised as jokes. Olivia stayed quiet, watching, and she noticed things. The way the youngest man, mid-30s, nervous energy, kept checking his phone. How his left hand trembled slightly when Leo mentioned shipments. The micro-expression of relief when the topic shifted away from the ports. "Excuse me," Olivia said during a lull, smiling apologetically. "Restroom." She didn't go to the restroom. She went to the bar, watching the reflection in the mirrored wall as phone guy made a call, his body language screaming guilt. When she returned, she leaned close to Leo, pretending to refill his water. "The nervous one," she whispered. "He's reporting to someone. Check his left jacket pocket. Phone's been vibrating every 5 minutes." Leo's expression didn't change, but his hand found hers briefly under the table. A squeeze. Acknowledgement. The meeting ended cordially. Leo excused them early, citing her fatigue. In the car, he finally spoke. "How did you know?" "I'm a nurse. I read people's bodies for a living. Elevated heart rate, sweating, repetitive self-soothing gestures. He was stressed about something that wasn't this dinner." "You're observant." "I'm nosy. There's a difference." "No," Leo said quietly, looking at her with something that might have been respect. "There isn't." She found him in the library past midnight, unable to sleep in her luxurious prison. He sat in a leather chair, reading something that looked ancient and important, a glass of whiskey, catching lamplight. "Do you ever sleep?" Olivia asked from the doorway. "Occasionally." "That's not healthy. I'm medically obligated to tell you that." "Noted." He didn't look up. "You should be in bed." "So should you, but here we are, 2 insomniacs pretending we have control over our lives." She wandered in, examining bookshelves. "What are you reading?" "Dante." "Of course you are. Very on brand. Brooding Italian man reads Dante alone in a dark library. You're one thunderstorm away from a Gothic novel." This time he did look up. "You're very comfortable mocking me." "It's a survival mechanism. If I can make fun of you, you're less scary." "I'm not scary?" "Oh, you're terrifying, but mockery helps." She picked up a photo from the side table, the same one from her room. Younger Leo, older man. "Your father?" Something flickered across his face. "Yes." "You look happy here." "I was." He took the photo from her, setting it down carefully. "He taught me everything. How to run the business, how to read people, how to—" He stopped. How to be terrifying. How to survive. Leo's voice dropped. He died when I was 25. Someone betrayed him, a business partner. I've spent 8 years ensuring it never happens again. The vulnerability was brief, but it was there, a crack in the marble. That's why you trust no one, Olivia said softly. That's why I trust actions, not words. And yet you brought me here based on a debt. That's not an action. That's a transaction. You agreed. I had a gun to my head, metaphorically. The gun was very real. But his tone had softened. You did well tonight, at dinner. Was that almost a compliment? Don't push it. Olivia smiled despite herself. You know, you're significantly less terrifying when you're tired and drinking whiskey in a library. I'm still terrifying. Sure, and I'm still collateral. We're both pretending right now. Something passed between them, not quite understanding but adjacent to it. A moment of honesty in a house built on secrets. Then footsteps echoed in the hallway. Voices, low and urgent. The ledger doesn't match. Ward's file says otherwise. Keep your voice down. Olivia's blood froze. Ward, her father, the file. Leo stood abruptly. You should go to bed. What file? Olivia asked, her voice sharp. What are they talking about? Nothing that concerns you. It's my father's name. It concerns me. Miss Ward, what aren't you telling me? But Leo's expression had shuddered, the vulnerability gone. Good night, Olivia. He'd never used her first name before. She left, heart pounding, mind racing. Ward's file says otherwise. Otherwise than what? What exactly had her father done, or not done, that warranted $300,000 in 18 months of her life? And why did she get the terrible feeling that Leo knew more than he was saying? You'll need to be perfect tonight, Mrs. Chen said, attacking Olivia's hair with the determination of someone defusing a bomb. These people eat weakness for breakfast and reputation for dinner. What do they have for lunch? Olivia asked, wincing as a pin stabbed her scalp. Blood of their enemies. Hold still. It had been 2 weeks since the overheard conversation about her father's file, and Leo had stonewalled every attempt she'd made to ask about it. Now, apparently, she was being dragged to the social event equivalent of a gladiator arena. The Marcelli family will be there, Mrs. Chen continued, applying makeup with surgical precision. Old money, older grudges, don't speak unless spoken to, don't mention business, don't exist loudly. Got it. I'm serious, Miss Ward. These dinners are chess games with silverware. One wrong move and someone ends up. She made a cutting gesture across her throat. Dead or just socially ruined. In this world, there's no difference. The dress was emerald green, designer, and made Olivia feel like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Which, technically, she was. Leo appeared at her door at exactly 7, looking unfairly good in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her student loans. His eyes traveled over her, brief, assessing, and something flickered in his expression before the mask returned. Acceptable. Your enthusiasm is overwhelming. You look, he paused. Professional. Professional. Wow, that's almost a compliment. Should I get that in writing? Let's go. In the car, he handed her a small earpiece. Keep this in. If I need you to do something, I'll tell you quietly. Is this spy movie protocol, or are you just paranoid? Both. His jaw was tight, shoulders tense in a way she'd learned to read as stress. Tonight is important. The Marcelli family controls the northern ports. We're renegotiating terms. Renegotiating as in having a pleasant conversation, or renegotiating as in thinly veiled threats with pasta? The latter. Fantastic. I love being decorative collateral at a mob dinner. His hand found hers. Brief, warm, unexpected. You're not decorative. You're sharp. Use that. Then he released her, and Olivia's traitorous heart did something complicated. The venue was a private estate that made Leo's mansion look modest. Actual valet parking, actual marble columns, actual chandeliers that probably required their own insurance policies. This is obscene, Olivia muttered as Leo helped her from the car, his hand settling at the small of her back. This is business. Inside, the dining room glittered with dangerous people wearing expensive clothes. Olivia catalogued faces, older men with calculating eyes, women dripping diamonds and disdain, younger members who looked like they were auditioning for a crime family reality show, and at the head of the table, the Marcellis, the patriarch, silver-haired, mid-60s with a smile that suggested he knew where bodies were buried because he'd put them there, stood as they entered. "Leo Enzo," he said warmly, which somehow sounded like a threat. "And who is this lovely creature?" "Olivia Ward, my assistant." Leo's hand pressed slightly firmer against her back. Possessive, protective. Assistant. The man, Marcelli Sr., she assumed, let the word hang. How modern. "I'm Roberto Marcelli. Please, sit." They were seated directly across from the Marcelli family. Strategic positioning. No accidents here. Roberto's son, 30s, too perfect hair, entitled Energy, leaned forward. "Assistant. That's a creative title for someone who manages my schedule, coordinates my business affairs, and occasionally reminds me that sleep is medically recommended," Leo cut in smoothly. "Miss Ward is invaluable." The son, she caught his name as Vincent, smirked. "I'm sure she is." Olivia felt Leo tense beside her. "Actually," she said brightly, "I mostly just make sure he doesn't die of caffeine overdose or workplace-induced personality disorder. It's very fulfilling work." Silence. Then Roberto laughed, genuine, surprised. "She's funny. I like her." "Everyone does," Leo said tightly. "It's a problem." Dinner began with pleasantries that felt like landmines. Conversation danced around business, shipments, territories, mutual interests. Olivia stayed quiet, watching, and she noticed things. Vincent Marcelli kept checking his phone under the table, subtle but repetitive. His father would speak, and Vincent's hand would drift to his pocket, fingers twitching. Nervous energy. A younger Marcelli cousin, early 20s, baby-faced, shifted uncomfortably whenever Leo spoke, eyes darting toward Vincent like seeking permission to exist, and Roberto himself watched Leo with the intensity of someone playing chess 3 moves ahead. "The ports," Roberto said over the second course, "have been complicated lately. Increased scrutiny. We need to adjust our arrangement." "Adjust," Leo repeated. "Meaning? Meaning a larger percentage for managing increased risk? Or meaning you're leveraging phantom risk to renegotiate terms in your favor?" Roberto's smile sharpened. "Careful, Leo. Accusations can be dangerous." Olivia felt the temperature drop. This was the moment Mrs. Chen had warned about, chess with silverware. Vincent leaned in. "Maybe if you spent less time with pretty assistants and more time understanding port logistics." Leo's hand found Olivia's under the table. A warning. Stay calm. But Olivia was watching Vincent's other hand, the one near his phone. It was shaking. Just slightly. She leaned close to Leo, pretending to adjust her napkin. "Vincent's phone," she whispered. "Someone's texting him instructions. Check the cousin. He's watching Vincent for cues." Leo's eyes flickered imperceptibly toward the young cousin. Then back to Roberto. "Before we discuss percentages," he said smoothly, "perhaps we should discuss why your son is receiving real-time instructions during a negotiation." Vincent froze. Roberto's expression hardened. "What are you implying?" "I'm implying that authentic negotiations don't require coaching via text message." Leo's voice was silk over steel. Vincent received 4 messages in the last 15 minutes. Each time his position shifted, which suggests someone else is running this conversation. The room went silent. Roberto's gaze slid to his son, whose face had gone pale. "Vincent?" It's nothing, just show me the phone." "Father." "Now." Vincent produced the phone with trembling hands. Roberto read the screen, and his expression turned glacial. "Excuse us," he said tightly, standing. "Family matter." The Marcellis left the table in tense formation, Vincent trailing like a man heading to his own funeral. The room exhaled collectively. Leo's hand squeezed Olivia's, brief, acknowledging. When he released her, his thumb brushed her palm deliberately. Her heart did something acrobatic and unhelpful. "Well," she said quietly, "that was dramatic. That was you." His voice was low, almost warm. "You saw what I didn't. I'm observant, comes with the nursing territory. You're more than that." His eyes met hers, and for a moment, the dangerous world fell away. "You're Mr. Enzo." Marco appeared, leaning down to whisper urgently, "We need to speak, now." Leo's expression shuddered. "Excuse me." He left, and Olivia sat among strangers in designer clothes, trying not to think about how his touch had felt or how her stomach had fluttered when he'd looked at her like that. She was collateral. He was her captor. This wasn't a romance. This was Stockholm Syndrome with better furniture. 20 minutes later, Leo returned. His jaw was tight, eyes storm-dark. "We're leaving," he said quietly. In the car, silence stretched like a threat. "What happened?" Olivia finally asked. Leo stared out the window. "Marco found a bank transfer. Money wired from your father's account to a Marcelli shell company. $300,000. Olivia's blood ran cold. "That's impossible. My father doesn't have that kind of money." "The transfer date is the problem." Leo's voice was flat. "It's dated 6 months before the debt supposedly originated. Before your father claims he borrowed from me. I don't understand. Someone created a paper trail showing your father paid the Marcellis before owing me, which means someone framed him." The words felt heavy. "Someone wanted you to think my father betrayed you." Leo's silence was answer enough. "But why?" Olivia pressed. "Why go through all this trouble? I don't know yet." His hands clenched into fists. "But I'm going to find out." The car rolled through darkness, and Olivia's mind raced. Her father's file, the forged transfer, the Marcellis. Nothing was what it seemed. And Leo, dangerous, calculating Leo, had built his entire revenge on a foundation that was crumbling. "What happens now?" she whispered. Leo looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something in his eyes that might have been doubt. "Now," he said quietly, "we find out who's been playing us both." Olivia couldn't sleep. Again. It had been 3 days since the dinner, 3 days of Leo locked in his office with Marco and various men in suits who looked like they audited people's kneecaps for a living, 3 days of whispered conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. She was collateral, but she wasn't blind. At 2 a.m., she gave up on sleep and wandered toward the kitchen, planning to stress-eat her way through whatever expensive cheese Leo's staff kept stocked. Instead, she heard voices drifting from his office, low, urgent, angry. She should have kept walking. She didn't. "The metadata doesn't lie," Marco was saying. "The transfer document was created 6 months after the date stamp claims. Someone backdated it." "Show me again." Leo's voice, tight with something that might have been dread. Olivia crept closer, staying in the shadowed hallway. Through the partially open door, she could see Leo hunched over his desk, Marco standing beside him with a laptop. "The server logs point to a Marcelli IP address," Marco continued. "They fabricated the evidence. Your father's death? The business deal that went wrong. Ward wasn't involved. The Marcellis framed him." Silence. Then Leo's voice, barely audible. "I destroyed an innocent man." Olivia's breath caught. "You didn't know," Marco said quietly. "The evidence was convincing." "Because I wanted it to be convincing." Leo's laugh was bitter, broken. "I needed someone to blame for my father's death. Ward was convenient. He handled the accounts, had access, and when the numbers didn't add up after the murder, I assumed, anyone would have assumed. I didn't assume. I engineered his destruction." Leo stood abruptly, pacing. "I cut his contracts, bled his savings, planted gambling debts. I made sure he'd have nowhere to turn except me, and then I came to collect, thinking I was getting justice for my father. Leo, I became exactly what I hated, the kind of man who ruins lives over lies." Olivia's hand found the doorframe, gripping it like an anchor. The room tilted. Engineered. He'd said engineered. Her father hadn't just fallen into debt. He'd been pushed, systematically destroyed by the man currently standing 15 feet away, looking devastated by his own guilt. She must have made a sound, breath, gasp, something, because Leo's head snapped toward the door. Their eyes met. Olivia. She stepped into the office, and the look on her face made Marco take a reflexive step back. You did this on purpose. Her voice was eerily calm. My father's debt, his gambling, his everything. You destroyed him deliberately. I thought he betrayed my father. You thought. The word cracked like a whip. You didn't know. You didn't investigate. You just decided he was guilty and ruined his life. Leo moved toward her. The evidence pointed to him. Fake evidence. Evidence you didn't bother to verify because you wanted someone to punish. Her voice climbed. My father lost everything. His business, his savings, his will to live. He gambled because you drove him to desperation. And She stopped, the realization hitting like a physical blow. I'm here because you destroyed him first. Her laugh was hollow. The debt, the collateral. Me? It's all built on a lie you created. Olivia, I didn't know. You didn't care. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here, not for him. You were so busy playing vengeful mob boss that you didn't stop to think you might be wrong, and when you took me as payment, did you feel justified? Did you think you were collecting what you were owed? No, Leo's composure was fracturing. By the time you came into this, I already suspected something was wrong. The numbers didn't make sense, but I needed to be sure. So you kept me here as insurance while you figured out if you'd destroyed an innocent man? Olivia's voice dropped to something dangerous. How convenient. How efficient. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Leo? She stepped closer, fury radiating. Explain to me how any of this is justifiable. Explain how you sleep at night knowing you're the villain in this story. He flinched. Actually flinched. I can't. Finally, honesty. She turned toward the door. Where are you going? Away from you. She looked back, and the hurt in her eyes was visceral. You know what the worst part is? I was starting to think you were more than this. More than the cold, calculating monster everyone warned me about. I thought I saw something human underneath. Olivia. But you're exactly what you appear to be. A man so consumed by revenge that you became the thing you hated. Her voice broke. My father is a good man. Broken, flawed, but good. And you destroyed him because you needed someone to bleed for your pain. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't give him back the last 8 years. Sorry doesn't undo the gambling addiction you drove him to. Sorry doesn't... She stopped, composing herself with visible effort. I want to see my father, tomorrow, and then I want out of this house and away from you. The debt is fake, built on lies you created. She was shaking now, rage and heartbreak warring. You don't get to hold that over us anymore. Find another way to soothe your guilty conscience because I'm done being collateral for your sins. She left. Leo stood frozen, Marco hovering uncertainly. Should I... Marco started. Leave me, Leo said quietly. Alone in his office, surrounded by evidence of his own cruelty, Leo Enzo finally understood the cost of revenge. It wasn't the money or the blood or the bodies. It was the look in Olivia Ward's eyes when she realized he was the monster who'd destroyed her family. And unlike his other sins, this one he couldn't undo with power or money or threats. This one would haunt him. Olivia made it to her room before the tears came. Hot, furious, betrayed. She'd been so stupid. Falling for the quiet moments, the almost smiles, the hand at her back that felt protective instead of possessive. He'd ruined her father. Deliberately, systematically, cruelly, and she'd been starting to care about him. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Your father is safe. For now. If you want him to stay that way, Leo Enzo stops investigating. You have 24 hours. Attached. A photo of her father, tied to a chair, blood on his face, terror in his eyes. Olivia's world shattered into pieces too small to reassemble. She ran, down hallways, through doors, into Leo's office where he still stood like a statue of his own guilt. They have him, she said, voice breaking. The Marcellis, they took my father. Leo's expression transformed, guilt to fury in half a heartbeat. Show me. She thrust her phone at him. He read the message, and something deadly flickered across his face. Marco, he called, get everyone, now. What are you doing? Olivia asked. Leo looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something more than the controlled mask. She saw rage, determination, and something that might have been redemption seeking a target. I'm going to get your father back, he said quietly. And then I'm going to destroy the people who did this. Why? Because you feel guilty? Because I owe you the truth, and because... He stopped, jaw tight. Because I won't let them hurt what's yours. What I care about, you mean. Since you already hurt everything else. The barb landed. She saw it in his eyes, but he didn't flinch away. Yes, but I'm going to fix this, even if you never forgive me. Men in suits flooded the office. Orders were given in rapid Italian, and Olivia Ward stood in the center of controlled chaos, watching Leo Enzo prepare for war, wondering if redemption was possible for a man who'd become his own worst enemy, or if they'd all just bleed together in the aftermath. Leo's men found the location in 4 hours, a warehouse in the industrial district, predictably cinematic. But the Marcellis had made one critical error. They'd sent a proof-of-life video that accidentally included a reflection showing a street sign. Amateurs, Marco had muttered. Desperate amateurs. Leo assembled a team. Olivia demanded to come. Absolutely not, he said. He's my father. Which is exactly why you're staying here where it's safe. Safe? Her laugh was sharp. I haven't been safe since you knocked on our door. Don't pretend you care about my safety now. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue further. You stay in the car, non-negotiable. She agreed because she had to. Because her father was bleeding in a warehouse because of Leo's sins, and if she didn't see him alive, she'd break into pieces too small to find. The rescue was efficient, brutal, and faster than she expected. Gunfire. Brief, controlled, shouting in Italian, then silence that felt heavier than the violence. Marco emerged first, gave a single nod to Leo, and then her father stumbled out, supported by 2 of Leo's men. Olivia was out of the car before anyone could stop her. Dad! She crashed into him, and he caught her with the trembling arms of a man who'd thought he'd never hold his daughter again. Livy, he breathed. God, Livy, I'm so sorry. Don't. Not here. She pulled back, assessing him with clinical precision. Bruises, split lip, possible cracked ribs, but alive. Breathing. Alive. Leo approached slowly, carefully, like approaching something wounded and dangerous. Mr. Ward, Don't, Olivia said sharply. Just don't. They drove in separate cars back to the estate. James in one with medical supplies and Marco, Olivia and Leo in another, silence thick as fog between them. I have doctors on call, Leo said quietly. He'll be examined. I can examine him myself. I'm a nurse, remember? The skill set you found so valuable when you decided to use me as collateral. He absorbed the barb without flinching. Olivia, save it. She tended to her father in one of the guest suites, cleaning wounds with steady hands and a breaking heart. Leo had left them alone, which was the only mercy he'd shown that mattered. You shouldn't be here, James said quietly as she bandaged his ribs. You should have stayed away from all of this. Hard to stay away when I'm being held hostage. I know about the deal, what you did for me. His eyes filled with tears. Livy, you shouldn't have... What was I supposed to do? Let them kill you? Her hands stilled. Dad, what happened? How did we get here? James was silent for a long moment. Then, It started 8 years ago, after your mother died. He told her everything. How he'd handled accounts for several families, including the Enzos. How Leo's father had been murdered in what looked like an internal betrayal, and the evidence had pointed, falsely, toward James. How Leo had begun systematically destroying him. Contracts vanished, clients disappeared, savings evaporated like water in drought. "I didn't understand at first," James said, voice hollow. "I thought I was failing, that I'd made bad choices. By the time I realized someone was sabotaging me, I was already drowning. Why didn't you tell me? You were in nursing school, your mother had just died. You were holding yourself together with determination and coffee, and I couldn't—" His voice broke. "I couldn't burden you with my failures too. So you started gambling." "I started gambling because I needed to feel something other than helpless." He looked at his hands, scarred, shaking. "Every bet was a chance to fix things, to win back what I'd lost, to prove I wasn't completely worthless. But the house always wins, and I just kept losing." Olivia felt tears burn her eyes. "Dad, I lost your college fund, the house payment, everything your mother and I had saved. And when I hit bottom, Leo Enzo showed up like he'd been waiting for exactly that moment." James laughed bitterly, "offering me money, knowing I'd take it, knowing I'd fail to repay, setting up the final domino so he could watch me fall." "He thought you killed his father," Olivia said quietly. "I know, Marco told me." James met her eyes. "But thinking someone's guilty doesn't justify destroying them. Suspicion isn't evidence, and revenge isn't justice." The words settled between them like stones. "I've made terrible choices," James continued. "The gambling, the debt, letting my grief turn me into someone I don't recognize. But Leo Enzo made the choice to become my executioner. We're both responsible for where we ended up." Olivia finished the bandage, hands moving automatically while her mind raced. "I don't know how to feel about any of this." "Feel angry, you're entitled." "I am angry. At him, at you, at the Marcellus, at the entire stupid situation." She sat beside him on the bed. "But I'm also tired, Dad. So tired of everything being broken." James pulled her close, and she let herself be held like she was 10 years old again, and the biggest problem was a scraped knee. "I'm going to fix this," he said. "I'm going to get help, real help, rehab for the gambling, therapy, whatever it takes to be the father you deserved all along." "You've always been enough," Olivia whispered. "No. But I will be." She found Leo in his office hours later, staring at documents like they held answers they didn't. "He's stable," she said from the doorway. "Bruised but not broken. Physically, anyway." Leo looked up, and the exhaustion in his eyes was startling. "Good. I've arranged for a therapist who specializes in gambling addiction, residential treatment if he wants it. Fully paid. You think money fixes this? No. But it's all I have to offer." She stepped into the room, arms crossed. "He told me everything, how you destroyed him piece by piece, how he watched his life unravel and didn't understand why until it was too late." "I know. Do you? Do you understand what you did?" Her voice remained steady, controlled. "You didn't just ruin his finances, Leo. You ruined him. His confidence, his sense of worth, his ability to function. You turned him into someone he hated." "I know," Leo repeated, and the brokenness in his voice was genuine. "If I could undo it—" "But you can't. That's the problem with revenge. It's permanent." He stood, moving toward her. "I've cleared all his debts. Not just to me, every gambling debt, every loan shark, every penny he owes anyone. He's free financially. And emotionally, psychologically. Do you have a payment plan for that? Olivia, my name sounds wrong coming from you now." She turned toward the door. "Thank you for getting him back. For the medical care, the therapy, all of it. But gratitude isn't forgiveness, and I don't know if I can forgive either of you." "Either of us?" "Him for lying, you for being the reason he had to." She left before he could respond. She was packing, methodically, mechanically, when her phone buzzed, a video file from an unknown number. With trembling hands, she opened it. The screen showed her father, back in the warehouse, tied to a chair, fresh blood, new bruises, and Vincent Marcelli standing beside him with a gun. "Miss Ward?" Vincent's voice came through tinny but clear. "Your boyfriend's little rescue was premature. We have your father again, and this time, the price is simple. Leo Enzo's evidence against my family, or your father dies. You have 12 hours. The video ended. Olivia stared at the screen, watching her reflection in the black glass. 12 hours, her father's life, and the evidence that could destroy the people who'd framed him. She looked toward Leo's office, where light still glowed under the door. He'd started this war, but she was the only one who could end it. The question was, what was she willing to sacrifice to save what was left of her family? And did Leo Enzo's redemption matter more than her father's life? She had 12 hours to decide. The clock was ticking. Olivia made it 3 steps toward Leo's office before the windows exploded. Glass erupted inward in a shower of crystalline violence, followed immediately by the sound that would haunt her nightmares. Gunfire, rapid and relentless, tearing through the quiet night like the world was ending, which, apparently, it was. She hit the floor on instinct, nurse training kicked in before conscious thought, and army crawled toward the nearest cover, a marble column that probably cost more than her car. She pressed against it, heart hammering, brain cataloging escape routes while her hands shook. "This is fine," she thought hysterically. Just another Tuesday night being shot at in a mob mansion. Totally normal. "Olivia!" Leo's voice cut through chaos, and suddenly he was there, materializing from smoke and darkness, grabbing her arm, hauling her upright. "Basement, now! My father! Marco has him! Move!" More gunfire. Closer. Leo shoved her toward a hidden door she'd never noticed, covering her body with his, as bullets chewed through walls where they'd been standing seconds before. The door led to a staircase, concrete, industrial, definitely designed for emergencies exactly like this one. They descended into controlled chaos, Leo's men arming themselves with the efficiency of people who'd practiced this scenario, medical supplies being distributed, communication devices crackling with Italian that sounded like tactical updates. Mrs. Chen appeared, remarkably calm for someone whose employer was under siege. "Medical station East Corner, you're needed." "I'm not," Olivia started. "You're a nurse. People are bleeding. Save your crisis for later." She thrust a med kit into Olivia's hands and disappeared into the organized pandemonium. Leo was already moving toward his men, but he looked back. "Stay here." "Don't be a hero." "Wouldn't dream of it," Olivia lied. The basement had transformed into a war room. Monitors showed security feeds, men in tactical gear systematically breaching the compound perimeter. The Marcellis weren't playing games anymore. Olivia found the medical station and immediately had 3 patients, a grazed shoulder, a through-and-through in the thigh, and Marco with a nasty gash across his forehead that bled impressively. "You look terrible," she told Marco, cleaning the wound with steady hands despite the gunfire audible above. "You look terrified," he replied. "I'm multitasking. Hold still." She worked quickly, muscle memory taking over. Assess, clean, bandage, move. Just like the ER, except the ER didn't usually involve organized crime families trying to murder everyone. "Where's my father?" she asked, tying off the bandage. "Safe room, 2nd floor, locked down." "The 2nd floor where people are currently shooting?" "It's reinforced. He's safer there than anywhere." Marco stood, testing his balance. "You should stay here." "Everyone keeps saying that. It's like you all think I'm going to do something stupid." "You're going to do something stupid," Marco said with absolute certainty, then headed back toward the stairs. He wasn't wrong. Olivia waited exactly 5 minutes, long enough to patch 2 more minor injuries and convince herself this was a terrible idea, before following the tactical team upward. The main floor was a war zone. Smoke, broken glass, bullet holes in walls that had probably been pristine this morning. She stayed low, moving through shadows, guided by the blueprint she'd memorized during 2 weeks of insomnia-driven mansion exploration. The safe room was on the second floor, East Wing. She just had to get there without dying. Simple. She made it halfway before running into active combat. 2 of Leo's men pinned down by crossfire, one bleeding heavily from the leg. They spotted her, eyes widening. "Get down!" one shouted. She was already moving, sliding across marble floors like she was stealing third base, reaching the wounded man. Femoral artery compromised, blood pooling fast. "This is going to hurt," she told him, applying pressure with hands that remembered every trauma training she'd ever received. "But you're going to live, so let's call it a fair trade." He nodded, teeth gritted, and she worked while bullets decorated the walls above them. Just another shift, she told herself. Just another emergency. Except with more gunfire and worse insurance coverage. She stabilized him, field dressing, tourniquet, prayer, and moved toward the East Wing while the firefight raged. The safe room door was intact. She pounded on it. "Dad! It's Olivia!" The lock clicked. The door opened 6 inches, and her father's face appeared. Pale, terrified, alive. "Livy, what are you—" "Saving you. Again. It's becoming a habit." She pushed inside, slamming the door behind her. Leo found the Marcelli team's command post on the 3rd floor, Vincent coordinating the assault with the tactical brilliance of someone who'd watched too many action movies. "This is for my family," Vincent snarled when Leo appeared, flanked by Marco and 3 others. "Your family framed an innocent man and started a war over lies," Leo said coldly. "This is justice." The fight was brutal and efficient. Leo moved like violence choreographed, every strike calculated, every shot precise. Vincent fought desperately, the flailing of someone in over their head, drowning in consequences. It ended with Vincent on his knees, Leo's gun to his head, and the acknowledgement that some wars don't end in redemption. "Your father knew," Leo said quietly. "About the frame job. About my father's real killer. He let an innocent man suffer to protect his own interests." "So kill me," Vincent spat. "Be the monster everyone says you are." Leo's finger tightened on the trigger, then stopped. "No," he said. "You're going to live with what you've done, and you're going to tell the truth." He lowered the gun, and Vincent collapsed. Olivia found Leo in the library, their library, the place where they'd had almost moments, 20 minutes after the gunfire stopped. He was bleeding from his shoulder, slumped against a bookshelf, looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. "You're injured," she said, crossing to him. "You're supposed to be in the basement." "I'm not great with instructions." She knelt, examining the wound. "Through and through. Lucky. Doesn't feel lucky. Lucky you have a nurse who tolerates you." She cleaned the wound with supplies from a kit she'd grabbed, hands steady despite everything. "This is going to sting." He didn't flinch, just watched her work with those dark, fathomless eyes. "Your father?" he asked quietly. "Safe, alive, probably traumatized for life, but physically intact." She applied antiseptic. "You saved him. I endangered him first." "Yeah, you did." She met his gaze. "But you also went to war to get him back. That has to count for something." "Does it?" His voice was raw. "Does any of this count when it's built on my mistakes?" She finished the bandage, but didn't move away. "I don't know, Leo. I don't know if redemption works like that. If you can balance scales with blood. Then what do I do?" "You live with it." Her hand rested against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, rapid, human, alive. "You live with what you've done, and you try to be better. Not perfect, just better." His hand covered hers. "I destroyed your father. I used you. I became everything I hated." "I know. And you're still here." "I'm still here," she confirmed, and didn't know if that made her compassionate or stupid or some complicated combination of both. He pulled her closer, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their foreheads touched, and in the ruins of the war they'd survived, something fragile and honest passed between them. I can't undo what I've done, he whispered. No, but maybe we can figure out what comes after. Marco appeared in the doorway, expression grim. It's done. Marcelli family is in custody. Evidence submitted to authorities. Your name is clear, Mr. Ward's name is clear. And the cost? Leo asked without moving. 3 dead, 7 injured, and we burned the Marcelli legacy to the ground tonight. Marco's voice dropped. The question is, can we live with what we did? Leo looked at Olivia, and she saw the weight of kingdoms built on violence, of revenge that tasted like ash, of victories that felt like losses. I don't know, he said honestly, but I'm going to try. The mansion looked like it had survived a war, which, technically, it had. Olivia stood in the entrance hall 3 days after the siege, watching contractors assess damage while Leo's men coordinated repairs with the grim efficiency of people who'd done this before. Bullet holes patched, glass replaced, blood cleaned from marble floors that probably had stories to tell if anyone bothered asking. 3 of Leo's men had died. She'd learned their names, attended the private service Leo held in the estate gardens, and watched him deliver eulogies in Italian that sounded like grief wearing a suit. He hadn't slept since. She knew because she hadn't either, and she'd seen his office light burning at 4 a.m. every morning. Now, he found her standing amid the reconstruction, looking lost. Your father's being released from the hospital today, Leo said quietly. I've arranged transport, and a place for him to stay if he wants it, not here, somewhere neutral, safe. You don't have to. I do. His voice was firm. I've also retained lawyers to publicly clear his name, financial restitution for the years I sabotaged him, documentation proving the Marcelli frame job, everything. Olivia turned to face him. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes, tension in his shoulders, the weight of kingdoms and corpses visible in every line of his body. You think paperwork fixes this? She asked, but without the venom from before. Just tired curiosity. No. But it's a start. He stepped closer, careful, like approaching something wounded. I can't undo the past 8 years, but I can try to rebuild what I destroyed. Why? Guilt? Guilt, responsibility, and... He stopped, jaw tight. And because you were right, I became the villain I was hunting. I don't want to be that man anymore. Something in his voice, raw, honest, breaking, made her chest ache. I don't know if that's enough, she said softly. I know, but it's all I have. James was released that afternoon, and Leo insisted on being present despite Olivia's protests that it was a terrible idea. He should kill you, she'd said. Probably, but I'm going anyway. They met in a private room at the hospital, neutral ground, witnesses nearby, escape routes available. James sat in a wheelchair despite being cleared to walk, looking decades older than his 57 years. Leo stood across from him, hands clasped, posture military straight, but expression unguarded. Mr. Ward, he began. I owe you... An apology that can't possibly cover the damage, James finished. I know. I've had 3 days to think about what I'd say when I saw you. Olivia tensed, ready to intervene if her father lunged. Instead, James sighed. I should hate you. Part of me does. The part that remembers losing everything, watching my daughter sacrifice herself for my mistakes, drowning in gambling debts you engineered. I understand. I'm not finished. James's voice hardened. You destroyed me systematically, professionally. You were thorough, I'll give you that. And when I was at my lowest, you came to collect like I was livestock at auction. Leo didn't defend himself, just absorbed every word like penance. But, James continued, and Olivia's breath caught, you also saved my life, twice. You rescued my daughter when the Marcellis took her as leverage, and you proved the truth when you could have buried it to protect yourself. That doesn't balance the scales. No, it doesn't. James leaned forward. But it tells me you're capable of being more than the man who ruined me, and that has to count for something, or we're all just monsters pretending at humanity. Silence stretched between them. Not comfortable, but not hostile either. Something fragile and honest. "I'm setting up a fund," Leo said finally. "Restitution for the years I sabotaged you. Enough to rebuild your business, pay for treatment, start over. No strings. I don't want your money. It's not mine. It's yours. I stole 8 years from you. This is returning what I can." James studied him with eyes that had seen too much betrayal to trust easily. "Why? So you can feel better about yourself? So I can sleep at night knowing I tried to fix what I broke?" Leo's voice dropped. "I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for the chance to prove I'm more than my worst actions. And if I say no? Then I respect that and stay out of your life. But the money is still yours. The legal clearance is still happening. Because that's not about forgiveness. It's about justice." James looked at Olivia, who stood frozen between them. "What do you think, Livy?" "I think," her voice cracked, "I think people are complicated. And I think Leo's trying. And I think you both made terrible choices that brought us here." She looked between them. "But I also think maybe we don't have to keep bleeding over the past. Maybe we can just try to be better." James extended his hand. Not warmth. Not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. Leo took it, and something in his expression broke with relief. "Don't make me regret this," James said. "I won't. And Enzo? If you hurt my daughter again, restitution money won't save you from me." The corner of Leo's mouth twitched. "Understood." That night, Olivia found Leo in the library, their space, the place where things had shifted before the world exploded. He stood by the window, staring at the gardens where contractors had filled in bullet-damaged hedges. "You can't fix everything," she said from the doorway. "I know, but I'm going to try." He turned to face her. "Your father's lawyers received the documentation. Public statement goes out tomorrow clearing his name. Restitution is being transferred to an account in his name. You're very efficient with your guilt. It's all I know how to do." His laugh was hollow. "Fix problems, eliminate threats, control outcomes. You can't control this." She walked toward him slowly. "You can't control whether I forgive you, or whether my father ever trusts you, or whether any of this ends well. I know. So why are you trying so hard?" He met her eyes, and the vulnerability there was startling. "Because for the first time in 8 years, I want something more than revenge. I want—" He stopped, jaw working. "I want to be the man you thought I might be, before you knew what I'd done." "I didn't think you were good," Olivia said softly. "I thought you were complicated, dangerous. But maybe capable of being more than your worst impulses. And now? Now I think you're trying to prove me right." She stopped in front of him, close enough to touch. "The question is, are you doing this for me or for yourself?" "Both," he admitted. "Is that selfish?" "Probably, but at least it's honest." She reached up, fingers grazing the bandage on his shoulder. "You saved my father. You went to war for someone you'd wronged. That has to mean something." "Does it mean you'll stay?" The question hung between them, raw, hopeful, terrified. "I don't know," she said honestly. "The 18 months are technically void. The debt was fake. I could leave right now and you couldn't stop me." His expression shuddered. "I know. But," she continued, and watched hope flicker in his eyes, "I'm not ready to leave. Not yet. Not until I figure out who we are without the debt between us. Who do you want us to be?" "I don't know. Maybe 2 people trying to be better. Maybe—" She stopped, heart hammering. "Maybe something more. Eventually. If we can figure out how to trust each other." "I don't know how," he confessed. "To trust, to be trusted. My father died because someone I trusted betrayed him. I've spent 8 years building walls. Then maybe we start small." She took his hand, lacing their fingers together. One honest conversation at a time, one choice to be vulnerable instead of protected, one moment of believing the other person won't destroy us. That sounds terrifying. It is, but so was being collateral, and I survived that. She smiled, small, tentative. Besides, I've already seen you at your worst. Anything else is an improvement." He laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was rusty but genuine. "You're impossible. I'm honest. There's a difference." He pulled her closer, forehead resting against hers. "If we do this, if we try, I can't promise I won't make mistakes. I'm not asking for perfect, I'm asking for trying. I can do trying. Then that's enough." She tilted her head up, and their lips met. Gentle, tentative, honest. Not the kiss of hostage and captor, but two people choosing each other despite the wreckage between them. When they pulled apart, Leo's eyes held something that might have been peace. "Stay," he whispered. "Not as collateral, not as payment, just stay." "I'll think about it," she said, but she was smiling. The morning brought a new problem in the form of Marco, his expression grim as a funeral. "We have a situation," he said, finding them having breakfast, coffee for Leo, tea for Olivia, tentative domesticity between them. "What kind of situation?" Leo asked. "Legal kind. The DA's office is investigating the Marcelli takedown. They want statements and—" He hesitated. "They're asking questions about Miss Ward's involvement, whether she was complicit, coerced, or a victim." Olivia's stomach dropped. "They think I was part of this? They think you might have been leverage used in organized crime activities, which technically, I was," she finished. "So what happens now?" Leo's expression hardened. "Now we protect her, whatever it takes. Even if it costs you? Especially then." And Olivia realized that maybe, just maybe, redemption looked like this, choosing someone else's safety over your own kingdom. Even when the cost was everything you'd built, the DA's investigation lasted 6 weeks and felt like 6 years. Olivia gave testimony in a room that smelled like stale coffee and bureaucratic despair, explaining, repeatedly, that yes, she'd been coerced into the arrangement, but no, she hadn't participated in criminal activities unless you counted making Leo's schedule more efficient, which should probably be illegal given how much he worked. The assistant DA hadn't appreciated her humor. Leo's lawyers were better, slick, expensive, and armed with documentation proving the Marcelli frame job, James's innocence, and the fact that Olivia had been victim, not accomplice. They presented her nursing credentials, her hospital employment history, and character witnesses who testified she couldn't even lie convincingly about liking someone's haircut, let alone participate in organized crime. In the end, the DA issued a statement. "Miss Olivia Ward has been cleared of any wrongdoing. She was an unwilling participant in a complex fraud scheme orchestrated by the Marcelli crime family. No charges will be filed." Olivia read it 3 times, then texted Leo, "Does this mean I can put 'survived being collateral in a mafia debt scheme' on my resume?" His response came immediately, "Only if you want to be unemployable." She smiled despite herself. The public statement Leo issued was printed in major newspapers and went viral on social media, which was deeply weird for everyone involved. James Ward's name has been unjustly tarnished by fraudulent financial records created by the Marcelli organization. Mr. Ward had no involvement in the death of my father, Antonio Enzo, and I deeply regret the harm caused by acting on false evidence. Full restitution has been made, and I take complete responsibility for my actions. The truth has been restored, and justice, however imperfect, has been served. James read it at Olivia's kitchen table, the apartment Leo had purchased outright and transferred to her father's name, along with a trust fund for gambling addiction treatment and enough money to rebuild his consulting business. "He didn't have to do this publicly," James said quietly. "He did, though," Olivia replied, pouring coffee. "Anything less would have been performative guilt. This is him actually trying." "And you're okay with that? With him?" She thought about it, really thought about Leo's vulnerability in the library, his willingness to go to war for someone he'd wronged, the way he looked at her now like she was something precious instead of collateral. "I'm getting there," she said. "We both are." James reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Your mother would have had opinions about you dating a mob boss. Mom had opinions about everything. Remember when I brought home that guy with the man bun? She called him a hair crime with a pulse. James laughed, the first real laugh she'd heard from him in months. God, I miss her. Me too, Dad. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee in an apartment that didn't smell like regret anymore, and Olivia felt something shift. Not healing, that would take time, but the beginning of it, the possibility. She found Leo in his office that evening, reviewing contracts with the intense focus of someone who'd never learned to relax. "You're brooding again," she announced from the doorway. "It's very on-brand, but medically concerning." He looked up, and that almost smile appeared, the one he seemed to save just for her. "I'm working." "You're always working. It's like you think if you stop moving, you'll have to feel things." She walked in, perching on the edge of his desk. "How's the Empire?" "Recovering. The Marcelli territory has been redistributed. Our losses were significant, but we're rebuilding." "That's very clinical for 3 people died, and I'll never forgive myself." His expression tightened. "No, I won't." "Good. You shouldn't." She tilted her head, studying him. "But you also can't carry them forever, Leo. At some point you have to decide if you're going to live or just exist while feeling guilty. Therapy sounds different coming from you." "That's because I add sarcasm. Makes the medicine go down easier." She reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. "I've been thinking. That's usually dangerous. The 18 months are void. The debt was fake. Technically, I'm free to leave any time." Something flickered in his eyes, fear, quickly masked. "I know. But I'm not leaving. Not yet, anyway." "Not yet," he repeated carefully. "Meaning, eventually?" "Meaning I want to stay, but on different terms." She squeezed his hand. "Not as collateral. Not as your assistant because you need someone to manage your psychotic schedule. But as..." She paused, choosing words carefully. "As your partner, equal, someone you choose to keep around because you actually want me here." "I do want you here." His voice was rough. "I have since the night you called me a walking, brooding cliché and somehow made me want to be better." "Then prove it." "How?" "By letting me be part of your life, not just a fixture in it. By trusting me with the truth, even when it's ugly. By choosing me every day, not because you owe me, but because you want to." He stood, pulling her up with him, hands framing her face with unexpected gentleness. "I don't know how to do this. Relationships, trust, any of it. Then we'll figure it out together, make mistakes, fight, reconcile, be messy and human and imperfect." She smiled. "I'm a nurse. I'm excellent at patching up disasters. I'm a significant disaster." "I know. It's part of your charm." He kissed her then, slow, deliberate, honest. Not the tentative kiss from before, but something deeper. A promise that tasted like coffee and redemption and the possibility of something more. When they pulled apart, Olivia grinned. "So, do I get a raise now that I'm a partner instead of collateral?" "You weren't being paid." "Exactly. A raise from nothing is still technically an improvement." He laughed, and the sound filled the space between them like light through broken windows. 3 months later, the mansion felt different. Olivia had claimed sections of it, books in the library, plants in the sunroom, which she watered with the dedication of someone determined they wouldn't die on her watch, her favorite mugs in the kitchen that Mrs. Chen pretended to hate, but secretly washed by hand. James visited weekly, looking healthier each time, attending meetings, rebuilding his business, even dating someone he'd met at group therapy. Life wasn't perfect, but it was life, which was more than any of them had expected 6 months ago. Leo was different too, still intense, still dangerous, but softer around the edges. He smiled more, laughed occasionally, let Olivia reorganize his schedule to include things like sleeping and eating meals at normal times. "You're domesticating him," Marco observed one morning, watching Leo actually take a lunch break. I prefer to think of it as civilizing, Olivia replied, like a very attractive feral cat who occasionally commits light felonies. He can hear you, Leo called from across the room. I know. I'm building your tolerance for honesty. That evening, Leo found her in the library, their space, where the best and worst moments had happened, reading a novel and drinking tea. I have something for you, he said. She looked up. If it's another expensive dress, I'm going to start thinking you have a stylist complex. It's not a dress. He handed her a small box, not jewelry-sized, but close. Inside was a key, ornate, old-fashioned, clearly meaningful. It's to the estate's main entrance, Leo explained. The original key. My father gave it to me when I took over the business. It means... He paused, searching for words. It means you're not a guest. You're home, if you want to be. Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. Leo, you can leave any time. This isn't a cage. But if you stay, I want it to be because you chose to. Because this is yours as much as mine. She set down the key carefully, then pulled him close. You know, for someone who claimed he didn't know how to do relationships, you're getting suspiciously good at grand gestures. I had a good teacher. His arms wrapped around her. She's very bossy and makes terrible jokes and somehow convinced me I could be more than my worst mistakes. Sounds like a catch. She is. They stood there in the library, wrapped in each other and the quiet knowledge that they'd built something real from the wreckage. So, Olivia said eventually, pulling back just enough to look at him, do I still get to call you a brooding cliché when you're being dramatic? I'd be disappointed if you didn't. And when you inevitably work too hard and forget to eat, I'm legally allowed to lecture you? Legally required, actually. Good. She kissed him softly. Then I'm staying, not because of debt or guilt or obligation, but because somewhere between being collateral and being kidnapped and surviving a literal mob war, I fell for the man underneath the empire. Even knowing what I've done? Because I know what you've done, and I know what you're trying to become. She smiled. Besides, someone has to make sure you don't accidentally destroy any more innocent lives. It's a full-time job. Will you send me a bill? Oh, absolutely, with interest. She grinned. After all, you did teach me that debts always come due. And what's the interest on falling in love with your former captor? Lifetime of putting up with my jokes and never complaining about my plant collection. Deal. He sealed it with a kiss, and somewhere in the mansion that had been a prison and became a home, Mrs. Chen smiled and didn't mention she'd been eavesdropping. 6 months after that, Olivia found the photograph tucked into her medical bag, the one of young Leo and his father, worn at the edges from years of being held. Attached was a note in Leo's precise handwriting. My father always said the best revenge is living well. I think he'd approve of how we're living now. Thank you for teaching me the difference between justice and vengeance, and for staying when you could have run. L. She found him in the garden, discussing security updates with Marco, while simultaneously texting her about dinner plans. You're multitasking, she observed. I learned from the best. And sneaking sentimental notes into my work bag? Also learned from the best. You leave sticky notes everywhere. She tucked herself under his arm, feeling his body relax against hers. Trust. Earned slowly over months of choosing each other. You know what the best part is, she said. What? You came to collect a debt and ended up paying one instead. To yourself, to my father, to everyone you'd hurt. And to you, he added quietly, especially to me. She smiled up at him, though technically I'm still charging interest. How much do I owe? Everything. But I'll accept payment in coffee, honest conversations, and occasionally admitting when you're wrong. That's expensive. You're rich. You can afford it. He kissed the top of her head, and in the garden where violence had once erupted, peace settled like autumn leaves. Worth every cent, he murmured. Obviously, Olivia replied. I'm an excellent investment. And somewhere in the space between debt and love, collateral and choice, revenge and redemption, they'd built something that looked a lot like home. Imperfect, hard-won, real, and worth infinitely more than $300,000 could ever buy. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more amazing content, and check out the next video right here. You're going to love it.